Good morning, everyone, or perhaps good afternoon. I'm super excited to welcome all of you to today's special webinar featuring Sullivan and McLaughlin, and we're going to talk about how they've brought cloud-managed Wi-Fi to construction sites. And we have a special guest from Sullivan and McLaughlin, and that's Doug Shremp. Doug, do you want to say hello to the audience?
Hello everybody.
Thanks very much, Doug, for joining us. Doug is going to be sharing his experience with Meraki Cloud Managed Wi-Fi a little bit later on, and we're going to cover a lot of great content. So actually, let me go ahead and show you what we have ahead of us by the agenda. So we'll start off with a brief introduction for those of you who aren't as familiar with Cloud Managed Wi-Fi or cloud networking, give you a little bit of background on that and how it is that the cloud brings benefits to networking. And then we'll really dive into the focus and the feature for today, which is a case study of Sullivan and McLaughlin, commonly called Sully Mac. And Doug has been kind enough to also let us show a live demo of a few of his networks, and so we'll do that right here in the webinar. And then we'll wrap it up with a quick look at Meraki's product families, including Wi-Fi, switching, security, and so on. And we will leave some time at the end for Q&A. But if you have questions, whether it's about the presentation material or specifically for Doug when we go into the case study or demo, please go ahead and enter them into the questions area. And Olivia, my colleague, is here and waiting for those questions. She'll be answering them as they go along. And if there are some specifically for Doug, then we'll save them till the end and answer them verbally during the Q&A. Now, before we start off with what's here, there are just a couple of items of logistics to cover. And the first is a very quick poll that I'm about to launch. And this is a one-question poll. I'd really appreciate if the audience just would give us a little bit of input on how you first heard about Meraki. And so I'm going to leave that open for a few moments to give everyone a chance to vote. There are plenty of people online, and I see that many of you are already entering that in there, so thank you very much for that. And I'll just leave it open for a few more moments to give everyone a chance to enter their selection. Okay, super. Thank you, everyone, for giving us that bit of input. I'm also really excited to let you know that we are offering free access points to the qualified IT professionals that are joining us here for the webinar today. And that's a Meraki AP, similar to the one that you see there on the screen. Also comes with a 3-year license to our cloud management. This is yours to keep, yours to take home. You can get it up and running in about 10 minutes and really have a look for yourself on the Meraki hardware and, of course, the Meraki dashboard, which we'll be showing you in the webinar today. Now, we do ask that you please give us a quick telephone call so that we can confirm the shipping information that we have on file for you. And if you can't remember quite who to call or where to find that contact info, you'll find it in the reminder email that you received before the start of today's webinar. Okay, so with those items of logistics covered, let's go ahead and start off with the first part that's in our agenda, and that's just to give you a little bit of background about Meraki. Now, Meraki is part of Cisco. We're the leaders in cloud networking. We have over 20,000 customer networks deployed around the world. And initially, it was started out of a research group and technology that was coming out of MIT. And that group at MIT was developing wireless technologies and technologies for management of multiple remote and distributed networks. And ultimately, that grew up into the Meraki product line, and not only Wi-Fi, but a complete line of networking, branch and edge products, including switching, security, WAN optimization, even MDM. And now as part of Cisco, we're the Cisco Cloud Networking Group, and we're super excited to be part of the Cisco family, to be able to increase investment in the Meraki technology, to use Cisco's reach to bring our products to more and more markets, and really just to accelerate what we already had planned in terms of our roadmap. We don't have any changes plans to the roadmap, to the licensing, and so on. And of course, with tens of thousands of customers around the world, we are trusted by construction customers and engineering companies everywhere. And these are just a few of the construction industry customers that have trusted Meraki and gone with Meraki for their networking needs. And of course, today we're going to be talking about Sully Mac, so that'll be the focus. But if you do want to read more about some of these customers, you'll be able to find a little bit about their deployment stories on our website, or if you see any that are here of particular interest, then do let us know and we can set up a reference call for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and just set the context a little bit by talking about cloud networking. I'm sure many of you are probably using some type of cloud application, whether it's in the business environment or at home. You might be wondering how it applies to networking. What does cloud networking mean? Now, if we look at the cloud in general and just step back for a moment, we'll see that the cloud really serves to increase the efficiency of IT. And it does that in three main ways: manageability, scalability, and cost savings. And manageability and scalability really go hand in hand because it's very important for the IT department to have a fully integrated and up-to-date set of features for whatever services they need to deploy and support their business, and have that available and be able to turn it on and off without an extensive training period or ramp-up period, to be able to flexibly assign those resources or scale them up as an organization grows, or as I need to deploy those across small branches or maybe even large sites such as branch offices or even headquarters locations. And also cost savings are a big part of the cloud and a key reason why people are moving to adopt cloud applications and services. And what we'll see a little bit later on is that we can significantly reduce operational costs as well. Now, our vision is to bring the cloud to enterprise networks, and we do that through a complete portfolio of networking through access layer devices such as wireless APs, Ethernet switches, as well as edge or perimeter devices through the MX security appliances, and down to the devices themselves for corporate or company managed mobile devices, even desktops, through Systems Manager, our cloud-based MDM. And all of these parts of the network and the devices are managed through one single pane of glass, which of course is the Meraki dashboard, and we'll be showing you that in just a little bit. Now, to give you a little bit of background of how it works, and this will really help you understand what we're looking at when we show the demo, I'd just like to briefly cover the cloud networking architecture at a high level. And we've built an out-of-band cloud management system over the past 7+ years. And the reason why we've made it out-of-band and in this way that you see here on the left is because it's very scalable, it's very reliable, and it's very, very secure. Now, what happens is that you have Meraki devices deployed on site, a wireless AP or a switch or a security appliance, and those devices are connected to the Meraki cloud through a thin and secure link, and over that link, management and configuration data is exchanged. That's what's shown in that blue dotted line on the left. Now, user traffic does not go through the cloud. It simply goes off to its destination either on the LAN locally or on the WAN or internet, wherever it needs to go. Now, the reason we've done it this way, as I mentioned, is that there are some significant benefits. It's very scalable because if you need to add capacity, you simply add devices. You simply hang up an AP on the wall or mount it in the ceiling. You connect it to your local infrastructure. It automatically connects to the cloud and then downloads its configuration, becomes part of your network, and then is available for you to manage in the dashboard. Similarly, there's no hardware controller for the Wi-Fi system, so you don't have to worry about exceeding the capacity of another physical device that's there. We've also designed the system with reliability in mind. We're not really going into the detail of all the data center architecture here, but we do have a highly available cloud with multiple redundant data centers that are around the world. And also, if that connection to the cloud is interrupted, that dotted line in blue, for whatever reason, then the network that you have on your site will still continue to work. So devices will still be able to connect to the Wi-Fi network. They'll still be able to print their engineering drawings from the plotter or large printer. They'll still be able to share files or save them to file servers and so on. And also, we back up our cloud service with a 4 nines uptime SLA, 99.99%. And last, but definitely not least, is security. And again, it's important to note that no user traffic is passing through the cloud. And because of this and because of some other security tools that we've built in, things like two-factor authentication, change logging and change alerts, account security tools and account password security tools, third-party security audits, penetration testing, and so on, because of those features and the design of the system, customers that have very strict security requirements, like those in healthcare or in retail, can meet those security requirements with this system. And another great advantage of the cloud architecture is that we're able to deliver features on a quarterly basis in a software as a service manner. And these are just a few examples of some major features that we've delivered to our customers. And these features go out to all new and existing Meraki customers simply through firmware upgrades or sometimes through upgrades to the dashboard that require no intervention or downtime whatsoever for the user. And you'll see things like mobile application deployment, WAN optimization, device fingerprinting, an application firewall, and of course there are many, many more. These are just a few of the highlighted ones. So that's a little bit of background on Meraki, on cloud networking, on the architecture. At this point I'd like to reintroduce Doug from Sullivan Mac, and Doug is going to share with us his experiences on providing cloud-managed Wi-Fi to construction sites. So first of all, Doug, thank you very much for joining us. I do understand that you are a very busy person, and I appreciate the time that you're taking to share your experiences with us and with the audience.
Oh, you're welcome. So I guess, so let me talk a little bit about what my group does. My group has both an internal and an external focus. Generally, we spend most of our time working with customers on large construction and technology projects, deploying things like large networks for the city of Boston, including doing a lot of Meraki deployments for the city of Boston. And in this case, we were asked by our electrical group at Sullivan Mac to work with them on providing Wi-Fi on a large job site, and also by our IT department in helping support a lot of their remote trailers that are also on job sites and providing those with Wi-Fi. So we aren't the day-to-day internal IT team, but we act as consultants and engineers to both external customers and our internal customers, which in this case was our own IT department and our own electrical construction division.
Great. Can you give us a little bit of background about Sullivan Mac and kind of the scope of that?
Sure. So we're the largest electrical and tel data union contractor in New England. We have about 500 people right now. We vary, obviously, with the construction industry, but right now we're pretty busy. There's a lot of, as they put it, there's a lot of cranes in Boston these days. We have some fairly large and high-profile customers in Boston. Some of them that you might know are Fenway, Boston's Fenway Park and the Red Sox. If the lights went out like they did in Texas earlier, there'd be a lot of Sullivan Mac guys sweating it and running around. We also do Gillette Stadium, and MIT is actually one of our customers as well. And it turns out that we've actually turned around and sold some Meraki units to MIT. We work on several dozen projects a year that are fairly large. And for those in the construction industry, we do both core and shell for Sullivan Mac, and we'll also do the end customer fit-outs. In this case, we're doing core and shell and the temporary power for Vertex Pharmaceuticals. We're an IBW 103 contractor for those of you that work in union environments. And I do a lot of work with the union tel data electricians and technicians. And for those of you who've never worked with 103 in New England, it's a great bunch of guys to work with, and they really work really hard with us and for us.
Sounds great, and an exciting list of projects. I wouldn't mind going to Fenway or Gillette, not when the lights are going out, of course.
Yeah, well, it's good. We do so much work with Fenway. We actually ended up we have a box at Fenway now, and so the pressure's on. You know, when it's cold, the heaters are on. We like to have that. We like Fenway using a lot of electricity is good for us.
I'm sure no one online is envious of that at all. Could you talk a little bit about what it is to have Wi-Fi on job sites?
Sure. So, you know, the core and shell contract for the electrical contractor starts really just after the steel is in location and the structural steel is in place and the floors are in place. So at the same time, we've been asked to pull temporary power onto the floors. We're also being asked to pull Wi-Fi in as well. And so the real challenge here is, where do you mount the APs? How do you get power and tell data cabling to them. So we've used, fanless switches, hardened cabling, and run the cabling pretty much as soon as there's electricity on the floors. In this case, we mounted all of the APs to the structural steel, and we used outdoor APs. We actually used MR62s in this case, and that was done for cost reasons because the amount of performance you need here is not like you would need in a carpeted environment. But we used outdoor rated APs because we're concerned about water, dust. If you have people coring on site, there's silica dust everywhere. You just don't want any of that stuff in your APs. So with the outdoor APs, we get a little more power, we get antenna selection, and we get a rugged AP. And the Wi-Fi starts being used almost immediately because we're finding a lot of our GC partners are now asking that our foremen on site and our project managers all carry iPads so they can exchange electronic drawings and changes in emails as opposed to having to send out paper bulletins all over the place. It also helps to be able to zoom in and out and take pictures and exchange pictures immediately on job sites. So we're seeing that more and more. And our partner on this job site is Turner Construction, and they're kind of leading the way in those requirements.
So this Wi-Fi here is really part of a kind of a larger vision of how to use IT to make the job site more efficient. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So in our case, what we're trying to do is, keep the guys from having to come back and forth to the office to print out things, to get printouts, cutting down on our use of couriers, and also setting up, in this case, using the cloud so that we don't have to send IT people on site. We want to be able to give the guys who are already on site to do the construction, I want to be able to give them a stack of Meraki equipment and a stack of pre-configured networking equipment and have them install it all. And once they're on site, all their iPads and iPhones, they have the exact same connectivity at the job site as they would back in the office. But it's all centrally managed via the cloud controller, so I can monitor everything, troubleshoot everything without having to go on job site. Now, one of the reasons for that is every job site has drug testing generally and safety requirements. Well, for a construction team that's going to be on site for the duration of the construction, having them go through that safety training and drug testing and all the other things that go with being on a modern construction site is not a big deal. But having to do all that for IT people that are going from site to site and are only there hopefully for a few minutes or a few hours, that becomes a burden. So having that centralized management and monitoring allows us not to have our IT guys in the car all the time going from job site to fix on-site problems. And that's manifest in not just managing our Wi-Fi infrastructure, but also managing all the iPhones and iPads that we're deploying to our field personnel. And in this case, we've even extended that to laptops. So most of our laptops even have the Meraki mobile device management software installed on them as well. And it's all about keeping the guys on the job site working and keeping the IT folks not on the job site, getting their jobs done remotely without having to go there.
Great. And we'll have an opportunity to have a look at the systems manager, the device management, a little bit later on in the demo. In terms of the Wi-Fi, could you talk a little bit about what attracted you most and what's been most useful in terms of the Meraki APs?
So the Meraki APs are really good APs, but the chief distinguisher in my mind is the cloud controller and the deployment model of the cloud controller, and the fact that we are getting new features on a regular basis that prove useful. So we've been using Meraki equipment since the MR58s came out, and we were using those outdoor as well. And now we're continually upgrading the software and adding new features and systems. It's all web-based. It's very easy to configure. Things like auto mesh make it so that if we have a wireless issue, a wired issue, and we still have power to APs, we still have coverage in those areas. And the ability to use, in some cases, that mesh capability to help troubleshoot issues. And then one of the new features that was integrated, I think it's been in the last year and a half, 2 years, is the wireless IPS has also proved very useful to us as well. But the key is that cloud management and a cloud controller dashboard. and that continually updated of software releases. And we do use all the security features as well. On our job sites, to keep the job site configuration as simple as possible, we are just using standard WPA2 wireless. But at our office, where we do have more proprietary material and we do have a lot more guests that we allow on, we are doing 802.1x there as well as guest access. And for our remote trailers, we're actually using the VPN so that the users at the remote locations look like they're back in the office from a network perspective. And that's important because they move from place to place, and a lot of our guys are construction savvy, not IT savvy. So they want to just have a simple environment that they can work in that's plug and play.
Right. Actually, that's great that you bring up those two types of scenarios. Would you mind talking a little bit about this particular project that we'll show in the dashboard demo in a moment, because that's an example of one of the first types that you talked about?
Yeah, exactly. So in a remote construction site, we want to keep that environment as simple as possible and use it for the guys that are on site, as well as other folks from Turner and other construction partners and subcontractors on site. So we provide Wi-Fi for all of them to use. It's WPA2 personal with a pre-shared key that they're okay to share across different organizations, but we can monitor all of the stuff remotely. And in this case, the way that we were involved in that contract, if you're familiar again with construction, in the core and shell phase of electrical construction, often the contractor that's responsible for that is also responsible for the temporary power at the facility. And temporary power is essentially transformers and panels that are put on each floor in the building, and those electrical panels then provide feeders out into the rest of the floor to provide power for tools and lighting on the floor. And as part of that, Turner asked that we also provide Wi-Fi access as well. So we brought a cable modem in and a set of low-end unmanaged switches and some temporary fiber connections and temporary copper to those PoE unmanaged switches. And that's how we provide Wi-Fi in this environment. Really, because it is a construction site, obviously we're using outdoor rated APs because it is outside for quite some time. With all of the water and cement dust and drywall dust and things of that nature, we just wanted to have that outdoor rated rugged AP.
Sure, and those are IP67 rated, so it sounds like that meets your needs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So how about the Sully Mac network? You talked about that briefly too. Could you just describe a little bit about how you're doing that and how you send APs out to the sites and what happens then?
Correct. So we have other job sites where we have a network that's exclusively for Sully Mac. At a job site trailer is a typical example, or some of our remote offices. And we'll just install a Meraki indoor rated AP in those environments. And those APs broadcast all the same SSIDs as are in the office. And we use the VPN in some cases to get back to them as well. And in the case, just for simplicity, for a lot of the iPhones and things like that, we are using WPA2, but the users don't actually type in the SSIDs and things like that. We're pushing that information out via the systems manager so that they get configured with the necessary passwords and things of that nature. So it really is plug and play for our users as much as possible. And we actually just, because we are believers in the cloud, we moved to a cloud-based email system. And when we were configuring and deploying all the phones for that, we actually used Meraki's mobile device manager to push out the information that the users needed to move to that new cloud-based email solution as well. So we've used it for quite a few things. We use it for monitoring where things are, and tracking our inventory of iPhones, iPads, and laptops. And there are actually even a few desktops mixed in there as well if you look at our list of locations.
Yeah, I actually have that in this slide here. It looks like over 200 iOS devices, approaching 100 desktop devices, and you're using Systems Manager to push out not only those network configurations, but looks like AutoCAD, and so in fact software applications that are going to be used on site.
Exactly, exactly. So everybody has standard items. We're kind of taking a page out of Meraki's book and sort of updating our users automatically so that they have a transparent as possible experience of updates. It also gives us a way, beyond Find My iPhone, which is kind of native to Apple, to find where devices are and lock them if we have to, and wipe them if need be. And we're pretty transparent about the fact that we have these tools.
Yep.
It's worked out real well. It helped out a lot with the deployment of all the iPhones in this last year.
That's fantastic. That's great to hear. So what do you think is next for Sully Mac?
Well, so the big thing that I've spent my morning doing, and I'll probably spend my afternoon doing it, is we're deploying more and more Meraki access points for our customers. So one of the big projects that's going on right now is the city of Boston. If you're familiar with Boston, there's kind of a new landmark, which is, if you've heard of the Big Dig, the removal of the expressway and moving it underground in the Big Dig freed up a whole lot of land through the heart of Boston that's become the Rose Kennedy Greenway. And the Greenway has had Meraki access points on it for a couple of years now. And we're going to be extending the coverage of that network into the neighborhoods of Boston. We also just recently completed covering Boston Common with Meraki access points as well. So if you go into Boston Common, you'll be able to get free public Wi-Fi in Boston Common that's running across Meraki's and across the city's optical network, BONET. So extending that out into the neighborhoods, we're going to be installing about 145 APs across the city over the summer, and in particular an area of Roxbury and Dudley Square, which is kind of an underserved area from a technology perspective. And interestingly, for a major U.S. city, sometimes cell phone coverage in those neighborhoods is actually even spotty. So it's going to be all covered with Meraki access points over the coming weeks. And so Sully Mac's kind of uniquely positioned to do that work as a construction and network engineering firm. So we have electricians that can go up in bucket trucks and mount APs on light poles and traffic poles and on the outside of buildings, and then run all the cabling and electrical work that needs to be done to get those things to work. As one of our owners says, it takes a lot of wire to go wireless.
It does indeed. Sounds like a very exciting summer.
Yep.
Doug, I want to thank you very much for sharing those experiences with the audience. We do appreciate it very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I'd like to take a few minutes to go over the dashboard demo, and actually I'll flip over here to the dashboard and log in, and I had pulled up the Turner network, and I'll just give it a moment to log in, and also pulled up the Systems Manager network from Sully Mac, so we can have a look at that afterwards.
Yeah, and just a little plug for Boston construction. The area that this building is in is called the Mira Menino. It's designated as the Innovation District in Boston. It's adjacent to the Boston Convention and Exposition Center. There is just tons of construction going on in this area. They're going to be building additional hotels and research facilities. And this whole neighborhood has a significant fiber plant in it. So the Boston Convention Center is one of my customers, and one of the things I've been working with them on is making sure as we route fiber through this area, we avoid all the construction that's going on down here.
Right.
It's also adjacent to a fairly large new modern art museum, the ICA, and some great restaurants.
It sounds like the place to be then.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I did was I logged in, and I had already pulled up your the wireless network, in this case called Vertex, and this is just the first view, the overview, where we can see a little bit of information about network activity, the number of clients, how much traffic has been trafficked in the past day, and the usage over the past week. And then in the Google satellite view that we see here below, we see a map and icons, which are right now in green, meaning that these are locations of access points that are healthy. And if we want to, we can also go over here to the list of access points and just have a look at them and see which ones are currently online, which ones are perhaps just not part of this deployment. And here, in fact, we can see all of those. They're all green. They all have a G, meaning that they are a gateway or that they are cabled into the Ethernet network. And we can sort them by their usage or by their the number of clients that connect. You'll see this in particular, this one, has quite a bit of traffic, 5.11 gigabytes. It's not necessarily the highest one in terms of number of clients, though. And we can click in on one of these, and why not pick this one? Zoom in a little bit here on the satellite to have a better view. And we can see information about its configuration, its status. We can see even through LLDP information, the name of that switch that it's connected to. Looks like an HP ProCurve switch, PoE switch, of course. And we can also see below how many clients are connected right now. We can monitor things like channel utilization to keep an eye on the RF environment or use spectrum analysis. And there are some built-in networking troubleshooting tools. So we can, for example, use the built-in ping tool to verify the connectivity to this AP. And you'll see this graph is building up in real time and showing us that the average latency is a little under 100 milliseconds. There's no packet loss, so this AP has a pretty healthy connection. We can also check things like trace route, throughput. If, as happens when we're setting up a deployment of many APs, especially as it's being either staged or rolled out at the site, we can blink LEDs so you can actually make sure that you have the access point right in front of you that you think you do, or you can reboot the AP remotely simply by clicking here. And one other thing to note on the list of APs, if we go back here, is that we do have a view into the connectivity. And as we saw that they're all green here, we can also see that there is connectivity here shown in green and then in red. So it looks like these devices were powered down or lost power for some time here in the early to mid-morning, and then we can keep an eye on that, not only for the past 12 hours, but if we wanted to for the past 2 days, or even zoom out to the past week and see that information there. There we go. Looks like it was powered off over the weekend, probably just to save on energy. Now, we can also not only look at the infrastructure, but look at the clients that are connecting. And here we'll see by clicking on the clients page, right now for the last information for the last day, but we can zoom out and look at information for the past month. And then we can see over that whole month how much bandwidth has been flowing, 170 gigabytes of traffic, 351 devices that have connected. And we can very quickly find a device of interest. For example, if we want to look at all the iPads, just type in iPad and see that there are 23 that have connected to the network. And you'll notice this throughput graph has also been updated, showing that those iPads are using almost 44 gigabytes of network traffic. So a fair chunk of that total network traffic is coming from these tablets. We can also look for iPhones, for example, and see how many iPhones are connecting. Sort those by usage. Here again, the iPhones are actually using quite a bit, more than the iPads, in fact, which is a little bit unusual. Looks like almost half of the network traffic is going to iPhones. And then if we want to search for a particular user's device, we can search for, say, Brian and find Brian and his devices, or we can find any device that we want to, perhaps John, and find John's iPhone. And by clicking in on these, we can get similar detail as to what we had with the infrastructure, but instead of course, an access point, we'll be looking at a client. We can check the connectivity, see which access point the device is connected to, run troubleshooting tools like ping for a particular client device, see how much bandwidth is being used, and even apply policies right from the dashboard. So if the device is taking up too much bandwidth, or if it's using recreational apps like streaming music or streaming video, we could throttle those or even block them entirely. One other thing that I'd like to note, actually two other things. One is something that Doug mentioned earlier, is the built-in intrusion detection and prevention. And this is something we call Air Marshal. And Air Marshal is built into the Meraki APs and gives you visibility and mitigation capability for rogue access points or malicious SSIDs that might be in your network or around your network. Now, it looks like, Doug, here you have a pretty clean environment, no rogue SSIDs, and it looks like 11 other SSIDs. Many of these are probably neighboring from nearby buildings, or maybe there's a MiFi device that at some point came online. But if we wanted to, if there were rogue SSIDs or malicious broadcasts or spoofs, we could, from the dashboard, contain those rogue devices so that they're not creating a security hole in the environment. And then one last thing I'd like to show on the wireless network before we move on to the device management is the summary report. Because this is a great way to have a look at what's been happening at a high level and not only archive this information if you want, but also share it with your colleagues. Or at the end of a job project, you can have a look at these monthly reports and see what was the network usage like, how was the number of APs deployed on that site, how were they used, how was the capacity, how many devices connected, and so on. And you can see here we're looking at the last month's worth of data, and we can see the top access points by their usage and see which ones are used the most. And sure enough, this one here is much more heavily used than the other ones in terms of bandwidth, not necessarily in terms of clients, though. You'll see we can sort the clients column and get a different result there. And we can go below and see the clients per day and see how many devices are connecting each day and look at that trend as a job progresses through its different stages of construction. We can see the top clients and see if there are any that are hogging the network bandwidth. And we can even see the split manufacturers and operating systems. So we can see if there are lots of iPhones, lots of Androids, iPads, obviously, because they are being used for those business apps like AutoCAD that Doug mentioned earlier. So there's a lot more that we could go into with the Wi-Fi. I just wanted to cover some of the highlights and leave a little bit of time to go into Systems Manager. And now this is a little bit different because now we're not looking at one particular job site. We're looking at the devices that are owned by Sully Mac and issued to employees for their use. And you can see here that we have 273 clients, and the Google map below shows recent locations of those clients. So you can see they're scattered across the US. And most of those are iOS devices. You can see 223, but there's a few other desktop platforms. And we can look at those clients simply by clicking on the client's page, similar to how we did in the Wi-Fi page. And here have a look at all those devices. I'm sorry, 311 clients. And we can search for just the Windows devices, of course, and see 88 Windows devices. Or we can search for maybe iPad and look at 11 iPad devices. Or if we want to select a particular tag, if we want to assign different devices to different groups of users or for different job sites or particular functions, then we can tag devices and very quickly be able to not only view those devices of interest, but later on when we deploy software and apps or set security policies, we can assign those and apply those by tag as well. So let me just quickly go over what we can do here with the mobile settings and the iOS apps. So in terms of settings, you'll see that that Sully Mac has a profile called Sully Mac Default, and this has a set of restrictions, for example, that will allow or disallow users to do certain things on their iOS device, such as installing apps or using FaceTime or using things like Passbook or in-app purchases. You'll see some other things here for security and privacy, for encrypted backups, or to allow iCloud or access to iCloud services, and a few more that are related to iOS supervised mode, such as allowing iMessage or enabling single app mode and so on. Then if you'll see over here, we have also some security restrictions around the passcode. So this is, of course, the passcode that must be entered to swipe to unlock the device, and settings that can be pushed out for Wi-Fi connectivity and for VPN if we wanted to set up VPN, this is client VPN now, to those iOS devices. So very easy to simply configure once here in the dashboard and then push out those settings to all those devices so that you don't have to touch those devices manually and configure things like Wi-Fi or VPN on each of them. And finally, the last thing I'd like to show is the iOS integration. And if you have Android devices, this works with Google Play, the Google Play Store also. But here we see a few apps such as AutoCAD, Chrome, and if we want to add a new iOS app, we simply come in here and search for, say, if we want to add a to-do list app or some type of checklist, we can either add a free app or a paid app. The system supports both. And then deploy these apps to the devices that match a particular tag. You'll notice there's a tag for AutoCAD. So not every device is going to have this Autodesk software program. Only those devices that have this tag AutoCAD. And all we do is select the device, select the app that's going on the device, and then click on Save Changes. The apps are then pushed out to those iOS devices. Doug, anything you'd like to add here with regards to the Wi-Fi or Systems Manager?
Just one of the other things, and this goes to the continuous deployment nature of changes to the dashboard. One of the new features that was added is the ability to tag devices with their owner and use that information. So one of the things that you might do later on, and we might do, is changing some of the profiles to be user-specific so we can fill in the user's information automatically in the profile as we add owners to devices. And I think that feature's come out in the last 4 or 5 months, so we haven't integrated that into our config yet. But that's one of the things that I also like about it. And, you know, it's better than having to upgrade it all the time, but with getting these new features in, you want to evaluate how do you take advantage of these new features. And as you go into the dashboards, I don't think we've seen it here because it's pretty up to date, but you'll get notified when there are new features in a particular area, and you can go in and look at what those new features are. And I really like that about the dashboard.
Great. Thank you very much, Doug. Thanks again for letting us show a bit of the network at a job site and also that you're using the Systems Manager.
Welcome.
So we do have a few minutes left. I definitely want to leave some time for Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up with a look at the product families and start off with Wi-Fi that we've, of course, been talking about today. Our MR series is our wireless access point series managed through the cloud and through the dashboard. Everything that we showed in the demo and that we talked about and that Doug talked about is included in the product. So it's a very straightforward structure. There's a SKU for a particular access point, whether it's indoor, whether it's outdoor, single radio, dual radio, and so on. And then there's a license, and that license includes the management through the dashboard. It includes telephone support. It includes all the features that we've talked about and that are highlighted here. The indoor access points have a lifetime warranty. The outdoor ones, which are IP67 rated, have a 1-year warranty. Our MX security appliances are designed as a complete networking and security solution in a single appliance. And actually, we have appliances that range from small sites that would be applicable for smaller job sites or branches to very large appliances that are applicable for large branches or headquarters. And they include things, of course, like firewall, site-to-site VPN, client VPN, traffic shaping, content filtering. They have WAN link bonding, so if you do need extra WAN reliability, you can plug in up to 3 WAN uplinks to the security appliances so that you have maximum uptime. And they have things for security, such as intrusion detection, AV or security filtering, and many, many more things. And our access switches are available in 24 and 48 port models with and without PoE. The PoE models do make the PoE available across all the ports and also PoE+. And these are designed to have enterprise class performance and reliability. They also have a lifetime warranty, and they have built-in features that make it very easy to deploy modern services such as VoIP, video, and because they're also managed from the dashboard, they make that administration of switches, whether it's local or at a remote site, very, very easy. And Systems Manager we covered in the demo a little bit, but just to summarize, it does control iOS and Android for mobile devices and Mac and Windows for desktop platforms. It is cloud-based, so there's no on-site appliance or software or VM-based appliance that you have to install. And it works with any vendor's network, so you don't have to have Meraki Wi-Fi actually to use this. You don't have to have Meraki switches or security appliances either. And it actually is 100% free. It's available at no cost to any organization. So even if you don't have a Cisco infrastructure or Meraki deployment, then you can still use Systems Manager to manage your devices through the cloud. And a few things that are common to all of our products is that cloud management is built into all of them. And some highlights of those are the multi-site management, which is really integral and built into all of the product families. The zero-touch device provisioning that Doug mentioned and highlighted earlier on that makes it very, very easy to get up and running and to deploy at a new or temporary site. And seamless firmware upgrades that also happen over the web at a time that you schedule. Obviously, it's typically a non-disruptive time. Summary reports that we talked about, and security tools such as for strict security requirements and a very high uptime guarantee, 99.99% SLA. Now, if you are interested in getting your hands on some of the gear that we've shown or talked about today, I would definitely encourage you to take advantage of our free evaluation program. We'll actually send you Meraki gear with no risk and no commitment and no charge, and you'll be up and running in about 10 minutes or so, and you can really see how the gear works in your environment. If you have any questions about configuration or integration into what you already have, we'd be happy to make tech assistance available to you also at no charge. And then if you like what you see, you can purchase it. If it's not a fit for your needs, then you can simply send it back to us. It's really that simple. Okay, at this point I want to go ahead and move into the Q&A, and we do have some questions for Doug specifically. So Doug, I'm going to read those off first and make sure we cover them. Because the other ones we can cover a little bit later, and if we do run out of time, we can follow up individually with those folks too. So first one, Doug, is has the WAN ever gone down, and if so, how do you deal with that?
So at this particular location, we have Comcast, and the WAN has not gone down for us there. We do have other locations, obviously, where the WAN goes down. And that's where, having my engineering organization there to help troubleshoot that fact. Depending on the features you're using or you're using with the dashboard, the Wi-Fi will continue to work locally without any issues whatsoever with the WAN and the internet connection down. But, we just troubleshoot a WAN disruption like we would any other problem. In that case, we may have to dispatch somebody to go out and look at the remote end to find out why the cable modem or DSL or whatever mechanism we're using has gone down. The other thing that we use quite often and is very, very handy is the mymeraki.com local access to APs to make sure that the AP itself is up and running and check on its mesh neighbors and its access connection to the internet. So if that happens, normally the Meraki wireless LAN continues to work most of its features. And we just have to troubleshoot why the internet connection went down. Does that answer the question?
I definitely think it does. And there's a kind of a related question. I'm not sure if it's from the same person, but do you have any issues with the open network and using up bandwidth more than desired?
No, because there are actually controls in the Meraki to control exactly how much bandwidth any individual client or individual SSID can use. And we do use that on a regular basis. That's something, especially with the City of Boston network, we do control that by SSID. There's also a built-in firewall mechanism in the Merakis that we do use that to control as well. And we also, there's also content filtering in the Merakis as well that is fairly low level and simple, but it provides a thing where you can say, yes, we turned on content filtering. So between those various controls, we can control how much bandwidth is used by individual clients. And since we're talking about the other related thing we do is we do band steering, so that if a client supports the 5 gigahertz band for Wi-Fi, the Merakis will steer them to use that as opposed to the more crowded 2.4. And we're seeing more and more clients support that. So that's helping offload some of the radio traffic as well. Okay.
Great, and somebody asked if we could show the my.meraki.com, and so I just pulled it up. And of course, this is a little bit different from the dashboard that we just showed, and in fact is showing my computer's connection right now. It's connected wirelessly. It's connected to this access point called third floor middle MR24. There's the MAC address. Here's my IP address. I'm on the second radio of the AP on channel 161. The IP address, internet connectivity, cloud connectivity, firmware status is all here. So this gives us a snapshot look to make sure that that access point is in fact connected, that I'm connected to it, and it has connectivity to the internet and the Meraki cloud.
Yeah, so this is a key tool we use in the field when we're deploying access points. And the other thing that you may not notice initially when you start using the dashboard, but they've done an amazing job with the GUI, and it's all usable via an iPad or even an iPhone or Android phone. And so that makes it much easier so that I'm not standing in the middle of a street trying to troubleshoot one of these access points holding a laptop with one hand. We just use iPads, and we're starting to get some Windows 8 pads as well to do these kind of tools. And if you look at the client survey tools and mesh neighbor information, those are both very useful as well.
Yeah, here we see this is a dual band AP, so you see real-time channel utilization on channel 6 and 161. This is a little bit more information for my particular client. And then let's have a look at mesh neighbors.
So you can use this information to determine a lot about your radio environment. Even though it's not using mesh to get anywhere, this tells you who it can see.
And another question for you, Doug, is how did you set up VPN? You talked a little bit about VPN earlier on.
So the nice thing about the VPN is we have we use VMware in our office, and so you simply download a Meraki VMware client image that is the VM concentrator for the office, and then we associate an SSID with that concentrator, so any traffic coming from a particular SSID is tunneled back to that VM and appears to be on the same subnet as in the office as that VM is. It's very simple and very straightforward. And there really isn't a whole lot to configure on that VM because the VM, again, is managed. That VM VPN concentrator is, again, managed via the cloud controller. We didn't use the other MX and security appliances to do that. We just used the VM concentrator on the VM VPN concentrator.
Great. A couple of other questions about the dashboard in general is, one is, can you offer read-only views of dashboard to some people? So yes, we do have role-based administration, including network administrators with read-only capability. And if you have many networks or many job sites or locations, you can give administrators read-only access to some of those, not all of those. Of course, you could also give them read-only access to all of them if you wanted to. Another question is, can you use floor plans to see where your devices are located? So absolutely, yes, you can upload a floor plan, and you can see not only where your access points are located, but also an estimate of where your clients are located, the devices that are connected to the Wi-Fi. A question about 3G and 4G failover, how does that work? So the MX security appliances have a USB port on them, and that's available for 3G or 4G USB cellular cards or dongles. And we do have a list of supported devices for that interface, and it's available at docs.meraki.com, docs being the abbreviation of documents, docs.meraki.com. Do we support Bonjour services? Yes, we do. So you can stream or mirror content from, say, an iPad to an Apple TV. You can use AirPrint, and you can do that in a local subnet or across subnets in larger networks. And I'm just going to have a look at the list of questions to see if there are any remaining. What types of files are supported for the floor plan updates? So actually, I don't have the exact list off the top of my head, but we do support JPEG, GIF or GIF, PDF, TIFF, PNG, and there might be a few more. And can you remotely lock or wipe an iPhone if it is lost or stolen? Yes, you can. In the dashboard, you simply look for that device and you can lock it. You can also reset the passcode, so if somebody forgets the passcode, you can just reset it from the dashboard. And of course, if it is lost or stolen, you can wipe all the data too. Okay, we are just at the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. There are a lot of great questions. If we didn't have a chance to answer yours, please be sure to ask your Meraki rep, and he or she will be happy to answer any remaining questions or additional questions that you might have. One more thing I'd like to say is that we do have a survey as you leave the webinar. If you wouldn't mind answering it, it's 2 questions long, so it's pretty short, 2 questions short. And we'd love to hear what you thought about the webinar, how we can make it better, what other content you'd like to see. Any input that you have, we would definitely like to hear it. So with that, Doug, I want to thank you once again, and on behalf of our audience, thank you for sharing your experiences and your network with us. We definitely appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.